The Blob, or Tangle, I don't know which one's the canon names, I'm just going to call it the Blob for this theory, has been one of the weirdest mysteries to come out of Security Breach, considering it appears in an ending that isn't even canon, but later appears in the DLC to Security Breach Ruin as sort of a Easter egg to a degree. So something's going on here. I plan to solve that today as we dive into what exactly the Blob is. There's something I feel like I gotta say first before jumping into this is the fact that this wouldn't be the first time that FNAF is beating us over the head with a concept, because there's still something we need to discover. I mean, Into the Pit has like 3 different variants at this point, there's gotta be something we're missing. But with the Blob, it appears in the Afton ending, which is weird considering that ending isn't even canon, but then it later appears in Ruin at the start of the game. So this character is canon, but the ending it appears in isn't. So this character has something big going on with it, and we just haven't discovered it yet. So with that little rant out of the way, we now jump into the first idea, which is that the Blob is made out of special delivery characters. Now, I think one of the more prominent features on the Blob is the fact that it reuses a bunch of old animatronic parts, including some of the original Five Nights at Freddy's gang, some of the Funtime animatronics, and even some of the FNAF 2 animatronics. Now, things get interesting when you think about the actual roster on the Blob itself. We have Bonnie, Chica, Mangle, the Puppet, Baby, and Funtime Freddy. Now, looking at these suits, they look like the older models. Now, this is odd considering that the toy animatronics are scrapped and put in Fazbear's Fright, and, along with the FNAF 1 gang, are also dismantled and put up in Fazbear's Fright, which only leaves Circus Baby and Funtime Freddy up for questioning, but I'll get there in a second. How could possibly Mangle, Bonnie, Chica, the Puppet can all be on the Blob if they were all burned down in the remains of Fazbear Fright? Well, what if I were to tell you that this was not actually the original suits, but rather the ones from Special Delivery of all places? Now, the Special Delivery service was meant to recreate the animatronics from the past and send them out to people's homes, so it was not very unlikely to possibly have some of these characters down here in the pizzeria, considering that, for a long time, there was no Pizzaplex above the pizzeria. Now, even looking at the textures of these models, you can almost see what appears to be a reflection, which could indicate a sign of plastic used instead of the usual fur that the OG animatronics had, which, by the way, in Special Delivery, they all seem to have more of a plastic exterior rather than a base fur exterior. And why these characters' eyes are glowing red I will explain here in a minute. Don't worry, I'll get there. Now, quickly to mention Circus Baby and Funtime Freddy in on this, heck, I'll even include the Puppet here, is that they were also remade in the delivery service. Remember, the Funtime animatronics shells were all thrown out in the scooper room. If anything, all the older suits were completely gone, lost to time, considering that when we see Scrap Baby and Molten Freddy again, they'll have different exteriors rather than the previous ones that we see in Sister Location. So this is why I think Circus Baby and Funtime Freddy are also made up of characters from Special Delivery, considering both of them make an appearance in the game as well. Now for the tricky one, the Puppet. Now, honestly, I think the Puppet could be Lefty, which is an interesting saying considering the Puppet is not in Special Delivery, but Lefty was supposed to be anyway. Heck, Lefty was completely ready to go until Illumix, got their own game shut down, but I still think it's relevant here. Now, I hear a few of you saying, why exactly would the Puppet be in Lefty? Wasn't Lefty also burned in the pizzeria Simfire? Yes, but also you gotta remember they have Springtrap in here, and they also gave him the full fleshy interior as well that we see on normal Springtrap. So Fazbear Entertainment goes very much into detail on what exactly they're creating, or at least the Mimic does. So who's to say they don't just remake the Puppet and put it in Lefty? So I think that roughly gives an idea of what exactly the suits are in the Blob itself, but what about the glowing red eyes? Those are probably one of the more prominent features on the Blob, considering that those have been debated about amongst theorists. Well, what if I were to tell you that's actually Agony? You see, in the FNAF universe, there are 2 kinds of spiritual substances going around. There's Remnant, which is soul-infused metal, and then there's Agony, which is more or less like the energies made from people and all these negative emotions and stuff. It's a whole other can of worms, but what you need to know is that they're not necessarily the soul and they don't burn in fire. And that's where I think this theory starts to take off a little bit. You see, in the FNAF 6 fire, they burn down all the remnant in the building, but they don't do anything about the agony. So what if there's still some agony sitting in the pizzeria? I don't think that's enough to make the blob. I'll get there in a quick second. In Special Delivery, you are going around collecting remnants in remnant deposits. Heck, you even put them on the animatronic. And you're also able to collect Agony, which spawns Shadow Bonnie, which is an Agony monster. That's a whole nother can of worms I'm opening. It's not important to this theory. But what you do need to know is that Remnant and Agony do exist in Special Delivery, and the Special Delivery casts are all filled up with both Remnant and possibly Agony. So who's to say the red eyes on the characters aren't just like Agony seeping through and showing through the character's eyes? So that adds the Pizzeria Sim Agony and Special Delivery Agony to the blob. But wait, there's even more agony that's built upon this thing. In the Tales from the Pizzaplex, we read about some employees that are going through and breaking apart endoskeletons in the pizzeria after the fire during the construction of the Pizzaplex. And one of the employees finds the Mimic and reprograms it to help with the job. However, this doesn't go as planned, as pretty much almost all of them are torn apart and very few make it out alive, and they concrete the door off so no one can get in and that thing can't get out. So with those employees' agony now stacked on top, we now have even more, because in the other epilogues, there are the group of teenagers that sneak into the pizzeria and most of them die to the Mimic, also building up agony. So yeah, you have the Special Delivery cast inside the blob, which give it that base agony to start with, along with the Pizza Sim agony. Then you have everything that happens in Tales from the Pizzaplex thrown in there as well, at least the epilogue, sorry. And all of that combined together can form the blob. Because remember, this isn't the first time we've seen Agony form something massive before. I mean, heck, if we look over at Fazbear Frights, there's all these Agony relics collected and thrown into this pile, and it makes the Agony, or the Afton amalgamation, depending on what you like to call it. And this thing is a towering, I think, like 6 foot or something like that. It's a massive amalgamation of a ton of different characters. And yeah, this thing is not easy to take down. The only reason Larson is even able to take that thing down is by drowning it in the lake. So yeah, this isn't the first time we've seen all these different kinds of agony building up into one creature. Now quickly, I do want to mention a few endoskeletons you can see on the blob, because of course they're part of the blob. I think these are just spare endoskeletons that we either see in Tales from the Pizzaplex or from the Special Delivery Fazbear Funtime service. As we can see, some of them even still have the glowing red eyes. So yeah, there you have it. I think that the blob is made up of Special Delivery characters, along with the agony of what's left with the Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator fire, the agony that's of course from Special Delivery, and the Tales epilogues. So with that being said, I hope you all enjoyed this theory. If you want to help support the channel, consider leaving a like. Also subscribe so you don't miss out on future content. Thank you so much to Commander Crunch and Top Hat Yellow for helping out with this theory. Links to their channels in the description. With that being said, I'll see you all next time.